What is up, everyone? Welcome to the first video of 2025. Today I'm going to show you how I refinished and modernized this Chippendale style nightstand. We're going to address this dated base, these hardware, and also this dark cherry finish. We're going to go for something light, bright, and modern. So stay tuned. As usual, first step is to take off this old hardware. So I found these nightstands. There are actually two of them. I'm going to walk you through how I work on one of them, and then I'll show you them as a pair at the end. I got these from Facebook Marketplace from a really nice lady, and they ended up, she didn't have a maker listed, but they ended up being American Drew, which through my research tells me that this means that it's fairly good quality furniture. I'm imagining they're from around the 1980s or so. And so my plan here is to go ahead and strip off all of this dark finish, which I'm imagining is going to be a combination of a thick sort of top coat and some stain and dye. And again, here I'm using the product that I typically use, which is Quick Strip's Premium Stripper. The process is to apply it to the surface and then let it sit for about 15 minutes before scraping it off. I'm going to use that on the whole dresser and also the drawer fronts. And here I'm just putting a piece of tape underneath on the back so the hardware, to block the hardware holes so the stripper doesn't drip down into the drawer and make a mess. After the stripper sat for 15 minutes, then I was able to easily scrape off the finish. I'm using a 5-in-1 tool here, but you can also use a plastic scraper or some other tool of your choice. I'm using this pretty lightly just since it's metal and I don't want to damage the surface. So if you choose to use this tool, I would be careful. And then I'm just collecting all of this in a trash box. And I somehow forgot to re-record it, but I did the same process on the drawer fronts. Next, to remove the stripper residue, I'm using lacquer thinner, and this is gonna serve two purposes. One, like I said, it will remove the stripper residue, but also help me get any of the remaining finish that is still there. I usually start with a paper towel or shop cloth to get the bulk of the stripper residue off, and then anywhere around the edges like this, I'll use a plastic scraping brush and loosen up any remaining finish. Now I said I was going to address the dated base here, and after turning this over, I was super pleased to find out that these base pieces are simply attached with screws. So all I had to do was remove the screws and the pieces came right off. My plan is to replace these base pieces with some new legs, feet. They're still going to be classic in design, but a bit simpler. And now to get back to stripping the rest of the piece. I'll be repeating the same process of applying stripper, letting that sit for about 15 minutes, and then coming back, scraping it off, and then coming in with some acetone and a combination of paper towels and my plastic brush to get all the remaining finish and stripper residue off. So I've seen some people come in at this point with a carbide scraper to remove the stripper and the finish together. I've never really gotten the hang of my carbide scraper, so I kind of abandoned that idea. But let me know what I'm doing wrong, because maybe it's my carbide scraper. As you can see there, like I scrape flat and like it only takes off like part of it, like it's like not an even blade or something, but I've replaced the blade as well, so I'm not really sure what I'm doing wrong there. Maybe I just need a better one. And here is the piece after all the stripping is done. Now time to move on to everyone's favorite part, sanding. So I'm just gonna start out with the hand sander going around the edges, and then I will move on to my orbital sander to get all the flat areas. And because I stripped most of the finish off with chemical stripper, I'm gonna start with 120 and then move up to 180 before moving on. After finishing sanding all the flat areas with my orbital sander, I'm moving back to hand sanding to get the trim details. And back to my orbital sander for the drawer fronts. As I was sanding this first drawer, I realized that I forgot to fill the hardware holes, so I stopped. Grabbed my trusty Quickwood epoxy, which is a putty. It comes in two parts. You just cut off what you need and then mix it together until it is a nice uniform color. I would recommend wearing gloves for this. And then stuffing the holes. I had tape on the back, so I just pushed it in there all the way through until it was full, and leave a little bit mounded on top so that when you sand it, it's nice and flat. So once that dried, about an hour or so, because it's pretty cool right now. It took about an hour. I think it says maybe 30 minutes usual dry time. And then back to sanding. So I used my orbital sander to sand the rest of the drawer fronts and the filler down flat, and then went back to hand sanding around the edges and the curved parts. And now it's time for the fun part. We're gonna do a paint wash technique on this nightstand. Like I said, I'm gonna go for a light color. Because this wood still has a bit of a red tint to it, I'm using a green wash first. And my reason for that is because of color theory. So red and green are complementary colors, so meaning they're on the opposite end of the color wheel, and when complementary colors are mixed together, they neutralize each other. So the attempt here with the green wash is to neutralize the red tones in the wood, and then once this is dry, I will move on to a more typical tan wash. So the paint wash technique steps are usually starting out. You'll use a diluted paint color of your choice. I didn't really go by any specific formula here. I know a lot of people do like 1 to 3, meaning 1 part paint, 3 parts water. I probably did somewhere around there, maybe 1 to 4. And then you will, after sanding your piece, you will apply the paint wash. You can let it sit for as long as you want. I probably left it for about 2 minutes, and then I'm lightly wiping it back. I'm kind of doing it in layers of wiping back because I don't want to wipe all of it off, and doing it sort of lightly multiple times gives it a little bit more time to soak in, and also not wipe it off completely. And as it dries, the streakiness will go away with this technique. So I'm just gonna go over the whole piece on all sides with this green wash. I noticed some parts of the trim were kind of still looking uneven, so that's what's kind of cool about this technique is you can go over it again a little bit thicker, and it will kind of even everything out a little better. So that's what I did around the top edge. And after one round of green wash and dry, this is where we ended up. So I am now moving on to a tan wash. So I know a lot of people like Algonquin by Fusion Mineral Paints. I didn't have any of that on hand, and so I have also seen someone use Safari Beige for this technique, and that's a Sherwin-Williams color, so I just ran out to Lowe's, bought a small little sample pot of it, and used that for my tan wash. And again, it's the same technique as the green wash. So just paint on your paint wash, let it sit for a few minutes, and then wipe it back. And a tip here, when you're wiping back the paint wash, it's always best to do your final strokes with the grain. So any kind of streakiness that does persist, it will blend in with the wood grain. And moving back to the drawers, doing the same process here, starting with the green wash and then moving on to the tan wash. Just to help even things out even more, I'm gonna do a second coat of tan wash on everything, and between coats I'm just using a very fine grit, light sand, just because the water in the paint will tend to raise the grain and make it a bit rough feeling, so just knocking that back with a fine grit in between coats. And stick around till later in the video to find out how I magically hide these hardware holes. Found these new feet on Amazon. I liked they have, similar style with a square profile and different edge profiles to go with the current design of the nightstand, but it's, they're simpler, a little bit more elegant. In my opinion, and so I am going to skip the green wash on these just because they didn't have that red tone to them to begin with, and moving on and doing a couple of coats of tan wash. Now here everything is after being tan washed and dried overnight. I am going to just wipe anything back, get any kind of dust or anything off of here, and then going to add a top coat. I'm using General Finishes High Performance in flat, and I'm going to do a couple of coats of this on all the pieces. And same thing with the tan wash. I'm going to do a light sand in between top coat layers to knock back any raising of the grain that happened, and also just to get a nice smooth finish and help the second coat adhere to the first one. All right, now we're rounding the corner here, guys. I created a template with a piece of cardboard that's shaped the same as the drawer and then measured out where the hole should go, and then I'm just gonna put that on top of the drawer, mark where I need to drill, and then go ahead and drill the hole. I still have the tape on the back, so that'll help with any splintering, but I'm also going to use progressively larger nail bits or drill bits just so that I don't split or cause any kind of splintering on the back, which has happened to me before. And now for my super secret trick to hiding hardware holes: cover them up. I found these hardware knobs on Amazon that contained a backplate, and they were the perfect size to fit just perfectly over the hardware holes that were existent. The final step before finishing is to install the new feet that I got. And so these were pretty simple. You just have to drill a large hole so you can put the bracket in that hole, and then screw the bracket onto the bottom of the piece, and then screw on the foot. And as a final touch, I'm just gonna put on some floor protectors or sliders or whatever you want to call them, and then clean everything up. And here's the final result. These pieces already had excellent bones. They just needed to be refreshed and brought into the new century. Let me know what you guys think of this makeover. And if you like this kind of content, I invite you to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.